My name's Jason Nagel. I am one of the members of the Commercial Real Estate Professional Group. We're part of the chamber here, and we put on try to put on quarterly programming. So I just want to welcome everyone and thank everyone for coming. This is a group that's been around now. I'd say this is probably our 5th year doing this or so, Christine. I think that's about right. And so this is obviously a popular event for the group, and we have good attendance today. So I want to thank everyone for being out there. As I said, my name is Jason Nagel with Naperville Bank and Trust. I'm the head of the business banking department here for the bank. And then also serving on the committee as well as Nathan Greenlaw and Christina Caton Kitchell. And so I just want to thank them as well for their participation as we look to do events. Obviously last year with COVID, we did not have any events, I don't think. I think maybe the last State of the City was the last thing we did. So it's been about a year since we had our last event. So I just want to welcome everyone back. Next, I do want to just give Kaylin Risvold, she's the Chamber President and CEO, just a few minutes to make any Chamber announcements.
Sure. Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us here today. Actually, one of the last in-person events that I attended was this very event last year, where we were in Calamos Conference Room at the Chamber, and it was one of my favorites. I left feeling like it was a comedy show and really enjoyed the fun and entertainment and a lot of really good information. So I won't take up too much of your time. I want to let us get right into the meat of the presentation here, but I do want to encourage all of you to make sure to head to naperville.net and check out our programs and events. We have a lot of programs and events coming up for you. Starting in April, we are going to do more hybrid events where we will be in person and have the technology capability as well. So please make sure to go and check and see what events are interested and relevant to you. And I look forward to seeing more of you as we get going. So thank you, Jason, Christina, the mayor, and Christine. I am looking forward to the rest of the presentation.
Great. So I just want to do then just a quick introduction for anyone that doesn't know our panel here. And I want to thank them for both being here today and making time. But we have Christine Jeffries with Naperville Development Partnership, and then Mayor Steve Chirico. So they have been our guest panel here. They've been so kind to come back every year, and we appreciate that. And Christine, I'm going to turn it over to you and the mayor, and you can do your thing. They're going to basically be going over today a little bit of a review of the past year and some of the accomplishments and things that have happened, as well as some of the new and exciting things that are on the horizon for the Naperville market. So go ahead, Christine. Mayor.
Hey, Jason, thank you for mentioning Christine first, because of respect for our elders.
There you go. And so it begins.
And so it begins. And let's see, I was fortunate enough to put together the PowerPoint. So the mayor gets to be surprised at what I might put in there. Well, I think it was Tom Myers recently said, hey, I've seen your show, slideshow, about 5 times in the last year. So tried to trick it up just a little bit. But for those of you who've sat through this before in different various spots, I apologize for any redundancy. But one of the things I mentioned to the mayor that I'd like to start with is just sort of going back and looking at how one decision, one action can make such a huge difference in the city's future. So what I have here, and some of you guys may remember, we're going back to the old days of 1997, and we had what was really sort of the piggyback area from the Burlington Northern. And in this area right through here, the rail cars would come in, they would unload, and this was one huge sea of asphalt where the cars would, new cars would be docked. The car dealers that were along Ogden Avenue, they would get deliveries by these guys right in the middle of Ogden Avenue. And we all know how much traffic that holds. So one day, sitting on the patio of their law firm, one of my board members called and said, listen, Centerpoint Properties is taking over this entire parcel, and they want to throw a bunch of warehouses up there because that's what Centerpoint Properties generally does. And it was part of a trade-off with the intermodal down in Joliet. Well, working collaboratively with the city and the NDP, we had better ideas for this property. These car dealers all along Ogden were landlocked. They were looking to move, to relocate. They had no place to expand. They were just sort of packed in there. So with the decision that we could do something different, the city began working on expanding the car dealers. The city basically worked with Centerpoint and said, we want to do something different to be able to expand our car dealers. So if you look, all of these dealerships along Ogden Avenue were able to add storage in the back. The city said, well, you know what, this is a great idea, but let's see if you can bring in new car dealers that would add additional funding. So all along Aurora Avenue here, you have the BMW, the Mini, the 5 new dealerships all along Aurora Avenue. Well, a lot of the people in the neighborhood were complaining about test drives through their neighborhood. So the city said, we'll acquire 10 acres and put in a test track. And that way, the city, it would be funded actually through a membership by the car dealers, but it gets people out of the neighborhoods and test driving through this area. And then an interior roadway was built so that the deliveries for the car dealers come off of Ogden Avenue. I can't say all of them do, but most of them came off of Ogden Avenue and they now come through this interior roadway. So in 2008, as the taxes started generating, so I wish I had the numbers going back to 1997, they were probably roughly half of this. And now in 2019, the last calculation, the city on 1% sales tax was generating about 13.8 million, which is roughly 30% of the city's sales tax that comes in every year, about 30 million based on the 1%. So that one phone call, that one reaction, that one action had such an amazing impact on so many layers of the city, from our businesses being able to expand, attracting new businesses, and really kind of changing the scale of how much property owners paid in taxes versus how much was covered under sales tax. So with that,
it's really is a, when you look at the Naperville sort of auto district now, I mean, it's probably, well, it may be the largest in Illinois, even including Chicago. But one of the reasons why Naperville has continued to be outside of Chicago, the #1 sales tax generator in the state, largely because, I mean, we don't have a mall, right? We don't have that type of a generator. So, this auto district has really been largely responsible for that.
all right, Mayor, you can take it over.
Yeah, and that sort of takes us to the East Ogden Avenue corridor, which was obviously a very tired, rundown space that was a very, very vibrant business district here in Naperville for many, many decades. And then, just as the downtown became more successful and Route 59 started to blossom, this area sort of fell behind. And we tried for about 10 years as a city to come up with ideas and ways to really spruce this up. And one of the things we did was we did a study on what could be done in terms of improvements, rebranding, and zoning, and what will it and what should it look like in the future. And so we went through a fairly extensive process with that, and then we ran into costs and objections and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, over the last, say, let's just call it 5 or 6, 7 years, we've had a number of interests in the East Ogden Avenue for uses that were what we would have considered to be sort of not traditional retail uses. And that was problematic because it's tempting when you are trying to revive an area to compromise on your vision and your principles. But we really we stuck to it. How many, Christine, like storage places and like gun shops and trampoline places and indoor sports places.
Gas station.
Yeah, daycare. I mean, you name it. Everybody was trying to get cheap retail space. And like I say, it's tempting because it's better than it being vacant in some respects. But we were patient, and it took a long time. It took a lot of work. But I mean, ultimately, this area has really just started transforming. And in the next couple of years, will look completely different than what we have seen in the past. And it's already started, as you know. These two have been up for about a year now. And they actually located here before the Costco was announced. So they had either the good luck or the vision to know that this area was going to start to become a much more vibrant space. But as we go through it, of course, when the Costco deal was a deal that did require some support, some financial support from the city to try to close the gap on some of the infrastructure that was needed to make this work. But it's about a 3-year payback, and we've seen before how successful the Costco business model is here in Naperville. So pretty confident that that is going to be one of the best investments we've made. But the key thing here is that, first of all, there was a lot of businesses that were displaced that located nearby. And not all of them, but many of them did. I think most of them did. But then, Christine and I kind of call this the halo effect of Costco. Then there were the businesses that came to the area that were attracted because they know that the businesses that locate near Costco are, much likelier to be successful. And of course, the rest of the strip center that you see here has it been improved yet?
Yes. Yeah, it looks really good.
Yeah, so that they finally dumped a fair amount of money into that and making that look a lot better. So just this whole effect of when you have one organization that's the brand of Costco that can come into an area, what a multiplier effect it has on the surrounding area. So we're seeing really all of the vacant spaces in the immediate area being filled up. And of course, the old Fair Oaks Ford, this property sat vacant. This was another one that came to us how many times for a gas station?
A lot.
Yeah, I mean,
quite a few. Yeah,
many. I'm sure the broker and the attorney were not happy with us, but ultimately we got what we wanted, and it's a boutique grocery. It looks suspiciously like the one down south in Naperville that went into the old Dominic's. And then there'll also be a little bit of retail on the east side of it as well. So really a great type of a business for the entrance into Naperville because, it's going to be a brand name. Again, it's right there next to Costco. And I think these two items here are really going to just change the dynamics of the entrance, this eastern gate into Naperville. So very, very cool. All right, Christine. Oh, this is the MZ project. This is the micro part. So the old, was it Days Inn or what was the old?
Regency Inn. It started out Days Inn, then it was Regency Motel. It went through a couple transformations.
It was one of the number one.
It was Days Inn originally.
One of the number one code violation buildings in Naperville, and also 911 calls for Naperville in the previous purpose of this facility. Originally, they were going to repurpose the original building, and then they ultimately decided to tear it down and rebuild. It is like what you see right now. The micro apartments, a really neat new concept of housing that does a lot of things. It provides a space for people who are just need a small amount of space, and so it's very unique in that way. But it also checks the box of affordable housing, and because of while it is market rate rents, the spaces are small enough that they're affordable, and they actually meet the federal definition of affordability. So I have a feeling we're going to see this type of model used throughout the suburbs quite a bit as they convert some of these limited service hotels into other uses. But this also is on the East Ogden Avenue corridor. So we've taken what was once really one of the most problematic buildings in our city, transformed it into this. And so it's pretty exciting to see all that's happened on this corridor right now. And then along the way, I want you to know that the city continued to work on this area in lots of different ways, through grants for sign upgrades to eliminate these pole signs and make them monument signs, and facade grants and awards to give people, to encourage businesses to upgrade their facades. We've replanted, I don't know if you've noticed it this last summer because the trees are starting to grow now, but we've planted hundreds of trees on Ogden Avenue to try to re-beautify it. And it's starting to actually take effect. And so you can see the investment. It's really looking good. Painting all the transformers, changing out the streetlights, undergrounding the electric lines. These are big, expensive projects to do, some of them. That electric line undergrounding was $1.5 million. And even stuff that seems small, like painting the transformers, is $100,000. So we've spent a lot of money and a lot of time on trying to come up with different ideas and programs, incentives to draw investment to this area, and patience. And now we are going to enjoy the fruits of that labor, because within, as I say, in the next couple of years, this entire business district will once again be a prominent business area for Naperville.
Mayor, a question came in as it relates to this. How will Ogden Avenue be able to handle some of the traffic flow that will come along with some of this?
Well, keep in
these
mind
improvements.
Keep in mind that the Ogden Mall was designed from a traffic standpoint to handle a big box store, and they didn't increase parking, for example. Kmart in its heyday was a very successful retailer, and they had thousands and thousands of customers each day. So this area really was designed for this. And Fair Oaks Ford was a very successful commercial business as well. So I really don't see that as being the biggest issue. I think the traffic, the area was sort of just designed and built for handling that type of traffic.
Yeah, there's actually less square footage. We forget there was movie theaters, there were about 8 other small shops in there, as well as the Kmart. So, but the transportation department at the city does have monitoring systems set up. If Costco generates more traffic, or if there's cut through traffic, is really, I think, what everybody's concern is. Ogden Avenue is a major thoroughfare and handles 50,000 cars a day. It's what it's set up to do. So I do think, for instance, the micro apartments, the previous motel was generating almost a busload of kids. So it's actually less impact on the school district. These are all studio apartments. So, the balance, I think, is going to be there between, as the mayor said, but it's also, designed for it. So I think the capacity for it is there. And again, they're prepared. The city, Bill Novak, our traffic engineer, our head engineer and head of TED, he's been with the city 20 years. He sure knows traffic. So they have monitors out there to make sure that the traffic flows the way they're expecting it to. And if not, then they'll take action.
Yeah, we have tools. The other thing is that it was interesting, how strategic Costco is when they figure out their locations. But when they shared with us some of the details of their demographics for this particular Costco, and I can't remember exactly the number of people who were coming from Winfield, Warrenville, Wheaton, Glen Ellen, the surrounding, Lyle, obviously, communities. But I thought it was somewhere in the 70% or 80% range.
Right.
Coming off of 88, going to the Costco and then going back. So, we hope that they will do some other shopping while they're here, but a lot of times they just go and do a Costco run. And so, that's the kind of traffic that you like, because it doesn't really clog up anything in our main thoroughfare.
And the Costco over on 75th Street and Route 59 is the single largest sales tax generator, really kind of by twice the amount. Sales tax just off the 1% off of that. Some of the food items and drugs are not taxed at as high a rate, but it generates about $2 million a year in sales tax.
Put that into perspective. I love to give this comparison. All of our downtown business district combined brings in about that much. So this one Costco, that's how impactful it is from an economic standpoint, financial standpoint. Just
a few other items. Again, as as there's some momentum in the corridor, KLA built a beautiful building over on East Ogden. The Burrito Perilla Mexicana is the old Wendy's. A number of other developments in that corridor, but again, as the mayor referenced, you have a halo effect as, you know, as neighbors start to enhance, there's a spread. And so I think the investments the city made to sort of lay the groundwork for it will pay off in the years ahead. All right. Do you want me to take this one or you want this one, Mayor?
Why don't you go ahead and take it and I'll jump in.
Okay, so even during the COVID and the year prior to COVID, we've seen a number of new developments coming into the downtown. You know, there's always some churn, if you will, of stores moving in, stores moving out. And that's true no matter what the corridor, the retail corridor is. So a couple things, when Medici's had moved out pre-COVID, Vasili's moved in. I've heard great things about that space. The Little Barn Baby, Soul Taco, Gayukaku, Heisman's just opened. Heisman's is the old Board and Barrel, and it's actually being developed by the Ballydoyle folks, the Empire folks. Lovesac, a little different concept, and again, working with some of our partners, Katie Wood and Kaylin and Christina and RPAI and Allison Laugh at the city, we started looking at different types of retail. We want to, and I'll give an example that I use, and that's showrooms can be a mattress firm, or they can be something like a Lovesac or a Peloton, and those types of uses. So there's some that I think would be very welcoming in the downtown, that would be a good fit. Others, maybe not so much. So Lovesac, while it's a bit of a showroom, it still has the opportunity to come in. You can order right there. It's gone in where the old Serendipity is. Not sure if it's open yet. If it's not, it's opening shortly. The eyeglass wearer, I'm not allowed to announce yet, but that's another retailer coming in. Cinnaholic, big fan of Cinnaholic around here because it's all, not me, but it's all vegan. And so they're, again, a great new addition to the downtown. And then part of my screen is blocked.
While we're right there on Jefferson Street, the question just came up in chat on Front Street Cantina reopening, and yes, it will be reopening. It had actually pretty well timed, in my opinion, a pretty well timed flood right before COVID that really just took them out, and so they had to completely do a rebuild while the pandemic economy was going on. So anyway, yeah, that's going to be reopening, and I think it's pretty soon too. Have you heard the date on that, Christine?
I heard April 1st.
Yeah, so perfect.
Yeah, so Mary, you want to take this one?
Sure. So this is the Central Park Place, the old Nichols Library. This property was quite controversial because of the library, but ultimately it was included in the final development proposal as a sort of a standalone building. They added that front area there for outdoor, what will presumably be outdoor dining. First floor retail, 2, 3, and 4 are condos. I think there's 17 or 18 condos, of which 10 or 11 or 12 of them are sold. The retail, I think, is pretty much at this time accounted, inked in terms of agreements. We've got the Sweetwater Tea. Help me here, Christina.
The Now Spa. The Now Spa is going in, an undisclosed
well, no, they can
retailer?
disclose it now. And so the Now is coming in, and James and Sons with Rolex is coming in. So we have the whole retail is completed there.
Awesome.
Just
So
a
you just
restaurant space.
Just need to get the restaurant filled.
Yep.
All right.
So-
Any nibbles on that, Christina?
There are, but there's probably more nibbles on that second generation TED space that just came up.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Get them filled.
You're always so coy.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy because James and Sons has been looking in the area, and of course, place in my heart, they're from my my hometown, but they're a great jewelry family owned jewelry store. But bringing Rolex back to Naperville, I think is just a real win. So we're really excited about that.
Big win. Christine, there's another question in the chat about what's the retail vacancy rate in downtown. Do you happen to have that information, or?
I don't. I would guess that it's probably hovers around 10 to 15%.
Yeah.
It depends on any given moment. So for instance, Ted's Montana Grill closed. And as Christina said, there's a great deal of interest in going in there. The Water Street is almost 100%, if not 100% now with the Ben & Jerry's going in. That seems fully leased. When we look at Main Street, you know, the Gap, nobody knew it was going out. One day it's announced. Sometimes we're just really a victim of their corporate decision-making. If a store, you know, goes out of business, we're sort of a victim of it, and it's really not a reflection of Naperville. So there's been a couple others. Hannah Anderson, they closed their stores. However, there is a new retailer, I may have referenced it in previous slides, going in there. And again, it's a big name, but there is a lot of movement in and out of, especially in the apparel industry, in the apparel world. But overall, we've managed to really kind of keep a good occupancy. So it'll be interesting post-COVID. As I think we've all seen, there is good interest in backfilling any vacant spaces. It's fairly traditional, but really the goal is to keep it pedestrian friendly. So when people say, how come, you know, why can't we just put I don't know, a health club on the first floor? Those are what we call pedestrian dead zones. It's where the shopper is walking down, they're window shopping, they're going in and out of retail and restaurants. All of a sudden they hit either a big parking deck or a kind of a by appointment only use, and they really sort of stop the flow. So we try and avoid, and the downtown plan was really designed around avoiding any pedestrian dead zones. So the vibrancy, you know, the co-tenancy is so important, but there is a lot of movement. We'll see how people come out. People need to go back to buying makeup, and they need to go back to buying clothes because they need to get back in the office. That's my plan.
Yeah, and you know, it is pretty impressive. I mean, as Christine mentioned earlier, even during good times, you'll have this grind, this turnover, because, you know, restaurants especially come to Naperville thinking, I'm going to go to Naperville because it's a great market. But it's also a very competitive market. So if you're a B or a C restaurant, you're not going to do so well. I mean, you gotta come here with a good product and good value for the residents, and then you do well. So you always have that turnover and that grind here in this downtown. That's a good thing also, because it keeps it fresh and vibrant. And so what's impressive is that we are able to continue to get the backfill during these last few months, and that's just, you know, that's really, I think, just a tribute to the strength of this downtown. So, but again, I think that you know, things got to start picking up now. So to give all these people, all these businesses, the chance to succeed.
So River Main is the Reuben Partnership. It's actually right now, it's the 64 Wine Bar tent property, but it is an absolutely spectacular building design. And I think the Reuben Partnership is already trying to do some is already working on some pre-leasing. It's 4 stories. It should have a rooftop. It overlooks the river, and it will really be the anchor at the corner of Main and Water Street. Mayor, do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I was just saying, it's just a beautiful building. I think the design, they went through several different design iterations on that end cap building there, and I think what they ended up with is complementary to Water Street, but also is a new, you know, a little bit more contemporary vibe to it. So I think it's going to be a really nice addition. And the Main Street Promenade, this building, first floor retail, mixed use, and then second floor luxury apartments, or the floors above luxury apartments, a highly amenitized building. So I'm hoping that this is a spring or summer start. Have we heard on that yet?
I haven't. I don't know if Stacy's on the line. She might, Stacy Short, if she could jump in.
Hi, I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. I don't have much more of an update. It probably won't be spring this year, but I'm waiting on a further update on the timing. We'll communicate that to you guys once we have it.
Great.
This is
Thanks, Stacy.
this property has been fully entitled. And so it's good to go when they're good to go. So that may be just more timing of the economy thing at this point. But very excited project because, you know, one of the things that when you look at Naperville's downtown, we've really got a lot of things right. And one of the things that has been a pretty common complaint is there's a lack of housing in our downtown. And to continue to be able to maintain, sort of vibrant downtown, you got to be able to have that daytime traffic and that, those lunch hour traffic and things like that. So you need to have some density in your downtown to help support those businesses. And so when this gets done, this will be a step in the right direction.
The Graduate Sciences Building at North Central College. My office is, let's see, right here. I can see it out the window, yet I have not walked across the street and taken a picture because it's already built. So now that the weather is warming up, I will change this and we'll put up a picture, but it reflects really the architectural style of the Wentz. It's already open. They're doing COVID testing in the building now. But what's nice about it is, again, it's bringing a little bit older student, probably not as old as the mayor, but a little older student to the downtown. And the graduate studies, they're more inclined to shop and dine throughout the downtown. So I think it's just a all-around great addition, not to mention having those health sciences, physical therapy and things like that. That helps out Edward Hospital, helps out the whole community.
For sure. And right now, the first floor of that building is being used for their COVID testing for the college students. So they've got a really cool setup down there for the U of I approved saliva COVID test. So that's pretty neat. And there was a question about parking on those last two properties. They are built into both that building there and also the Park Place underground in the case of the Park Place. And then the retail portions of it, I believe they buy into the SSA. Isn't that correct?
Correct. So the residential, in the downtown residential parking, it can be modified based on the number of bedrooms. However, you must provide on-site parking for residential, whereas the retail space becomes part of the SSA, and all the property owners contribute on their property tax towards the debt service on the parking decks and then the maintenance of both the decks and the downtown. So if you look at our downtown, if you were to build a freestanding retail store, you would probably park it around 5 per thousand, 3 to 5 spaces per 1,000 square feet, restaurants around 10. However, in the downtown, because people don't usually come in, just go to lunch and leave. They'll usually come in, they'll shop, they'll visit maybe 4 or 5 different stores, and they'll dine. So actually the parking ratio collectively in the downtown is about 2.5 per 1,000. Now, having, my office downtown here with COVID, I said, I'll never complain again about not being able to find a parking space in the downtown. You don't realize how good you have it when you have that many people, that many visitors to your downtown. So I'm hoping to see our parking lots fill up again.
Shops on Washington, this development really turned out beautifully. It's really nicely designed because it is part of a neighborhood. And there was a lot of debate with neighbors and stuff. I think everybody pretty much agrees at this point that this was a giant leap better than what was there. Just a giant leap. And the Starbucks, of course, is their outlet building, which is a beautiful Starbucks. And they've got a number of fitness-related places in there, and obviously some space still available as well. But go ahead. Oh,
I was just going to mention, they do have a couple. They have a pediatric dentist, a orthodontist, a regular dentist. Said it's kind of where people will go to smile over there, but also shred, which in my world that means you're shredding paper, but apparently it's a health club. Nail salon. So it's starting to fill out. There's still 2 spaces. There's about 750 square feet on the top floor, and they do have an anchor space that they're hoping for a restaurant of about 3,000 square feet on the main floor. But other than that, leasing is picked up.
Yes, that restaurant is not leased out yet. We haven't heard anything on that at this point.
No.
Standard Market has inked a deal for a medical provider in the lion's share of the building, which is pretty much the old grocery portion of it. The restaurant, which is about 5,000 square feet, is still available. It has not been taken yet, but they are going to try to maintain that as a restaurant. So, and I hope that that makes it, because it seems like everybody really did enjoy that spot as a lunch spot, especially. And so
It was a great place because we don't have a lot of
Right.
Restaurants right in that area. It
Yeah,
also
also
has an outlet. Oh, I'm
Yep.
sorry.
yeah, no, right. I was just going to say the same thing. They also have a couple, I think 2 outlets, don't they, Christine?
They can break it into 2 or they can do 1 depending on
Okay.
what you need. Yeah, it's actually not platted yet. So it can go either way.
But you may have seen a fence around this parking lot in the last couple of weeks. And so they are doing their tenant build out right now to get that building repurposed and back in business. So it didn't take long, especially again, considering, a pandemic economy. These types of spaces are not easy to move in these big spaces. So pretty impressive.
A couple people have said, oh, it's not a retail use. I often say if it was a really solid retail location, Standard Market would still be open there. And so sometimes, location decisions are made. They may work, they may not. But if you remember, this was the old Frank's marketplace, and the city actually participated. They sold Standard Market about 4 acres of city-owned surplus property that it backed up to over by the electric and fire department over there. So so it was really they paid full market rate for it, but it was still a good public-private development.
This is a property that just last meeting, or 2 meetings ago, I guess at this point now, was approved by our city council. Market Meadows, been purchased by Shorewood Development Group. They are putting about $50 million of improvements into this center. It is currently about 60% occupied, and they have 17 LOIs for the available spots after the improvements are made, and they've extended the lease with Jewel Osco for 15 years. So this will go from a significantly underperforming property to a fully leased, very vibrant property. This is actually near my house too, so I'm glad, because that's the Jewel I will go to, and the Mariano's across the street. It'll be good to see, again, another tired strip center that was from 30, 40 years ago. That's good to see money being invested into this area, and it'll bring it right back up to current.
If I could mention too, because it's been in the paper a little bit and kind of bandied about, but the idea of a 1031 exchange where you can sell a property and sort of, rather than pay huge capital gains, you reinvest into another commercial property or another like property. And I don't know that people realize how many of the redevelopment projects that we have are really based on the ability that a 1031 exchange can go into play. So when we look at where Costco purchased the old Ogden Mall, the group that owned the Ogden Mall have owned it for years and years and years, and the capital gains probably would have prevented them from being willing to sell the property to Costco. Same with this property, same with the Fox Run across the street where Mariano's, that was sold, Inland sold that with a 1031 exchange, and you see the redevelopment that occurs. So these types of exchanges prevent these things from just sort of falling in on themselves. We have 1 or 2 over on Ogden that I'd like to see happen too, but.
Yeah, well, I think Ogden Mall was a 1031 as well at one point.
Yep.
The question about that last one was about the storage facility, and yes, the storage facility is part of this development, but really interesting, because I wish we could see a close-up on it, but you can't see it because it has a storefront of about 30 feet, like any other storefront, and then the storage facility itself is back in the back. So they're actually, in this sort of redevelopment here, they're actually adding about 20 or 30,000 square feet of retail, even though they're taking away that one horrible designed courtyard that was there, that's currently there. That's a dead zone. They're getting rid of that, but they're also adding an outlot and, of course, bringing this thing back up. So the storage is part of this combination, and we were pretty careful about and crafty about how we got language in there to make this happen, and not risk being obligated to have storage in any other tired strip center. So we were able to narrowly craft it so that it was limited really to this type of a use.
And just as a disclosure, if the original design was done by an architect that happens to be a Chamber of Commerce member, it wasn't an awful, awful design. It was just dated. How's that, Mayor? In case we insulted any chamber members.
No, the thing is that 40 years ago it was a great design, probably.
Yeah, it was very modern.
Right, but now I mean,
Yeah.
clearly all those spaces were vacant for a decade.
Well, and again, the owner kind of lacked the will or desire to do TI, tenant improvement. And anybody in the commercial business knows, you know, if you want to get a tenant in there and you want to bring the building, really kind of rejuvenate it, you have to put out some tenant improvement dollars. And so the new owner, Shorewood Development Group, are all in. And so that's why they've been able to lease it as quickly as they have and as fully as they have. All right, Mayor, I'm going to let you take off on the Schumann.
All right, well, the Schumann, very exciting. I mean, gosh, just incredible story here where they get this building completed and then the pandemic hits and they spent, I don't know if all of you have been inside this at this point or if any of you have, but I haven't. It's really just a fully amenitized building, fitness center, cafe, community space, game rooms, business areas. I mean, it's just a beautiful, beautiful facility. They have been, as you can see here at the list of tenants that have been signed, and they have one coming up that is just very, very exciting. I don't think it's been announced yet. I don't see it on the list, so I'm assuming it's not.
It's the bottom confidential user.
Okay, there it is. Thank you. Yeah, 41,000 square feet. I mean, these are we're competing against a lot of pretty nice buildings over here, and so I think it's just proving that this idea that we've been talking about for a while at NDP about, you know, corporations, major corporations with headquarters in the city, you know, locating out here in the suburbs in either a satellite office or bringing out, you know, a fairly significant part of their office capacity into our area, like BMO. But this particular building was a bit of a risk for them. It's a big, obviously it's the largest building that we have in our city in terms of office space, and they took it, converted it, and they're filling it.
Yeah, it's 365,000 square feet. It was originally built for AT&T when Bell Labs and AT&T split, and you know, due to some issues there, it stayed vacant for a while. OfficeMax came in, renovated the space, actually added square footage to it, and in the merger of OfficeMax and Office Depot, they ended up relocating to the Office Depot headquarters down in Florida, but they were continuing to pay on this building. And I bring that up because similar to the ConAgra, the 215 Schumann building, which just finally sold at auction, but for the last 7 or 8 years, ConAgra has been paying the rent. So OfficeMax was still obligated to pay the full rent on this property. When you see an empty building and, you know, nobody gets more frustrated than the mayor and myself over it being vacant, but if I own the property on my, you know, on my statistic spreadsheet, it shows as fully leased because somebody is paying the rent, much like Albertsons was doing on the old Dominic's buildings. So sometimes we really have to kind of wait it out. Once this building, once the lease expired, as is typically the case, whoever owns the property turns the paper back into the bank. Sorry, Jason. And then it'll sell for, you know, at a foreclosure price. And that allows them to put money back into it. When it sells at a low price, the property taxes go down. Obviously, it's based on assessed value. Once it's redone and it's reoccupied, then the school districts will benefit from that. So as we see the tenants, new ownership come in, new money come in, it goes back on fully on the tax roll.
This is a big deal. You guys, when we lost Office Max, they took, I think it was like 2,000 or 2,500 jobs with them. And a lot of them were, high paying jobs. It put a huge amount of downward pressure on our housing market here in Naperville and the surrounding communities. That was a big employer to lose. And so repurposing this building with high-end office space is really going to have a ripple effect in our community.
And I've said this, in the go-go days, under Jim Thompson and that, everybody, Chicago was really a hub. And, if you were going to retire, you would go down to Boca Raton. So I think it's really indicative of the world we live in when a headquarters chooses Boca Raton, and it lets us know, game on. We are no longer competing against Indiana, Wisconsin, maybe New York and LA. It's, it's pretty universal. Texas is a big competitor. Florida's become a big competitor. So I think, however, Naperville was selected as one of the top 10 places to retire, which I don't know if Boca Raton gets that anymore. So.
And a lot of those companies, especially the new one who hasn't been announced, Debbie, is coming in from outside of Naperville, who are occupying the Schumann. Not expansion, although I think there are a couple of expansions as well.
We're getting some feedback. Am I okay here?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. A couple others that I think are important. We're just trying to kind of demonstrate that even during COVID, there was one thing that continued, and that was building permits. Companies still looking, a lot of improvements made. Some of them just said, hey, since we don't have employees in here for a while, let's go ahead and renovate our space. But buildings like the 55 Schumann, sometimes it's known as the N building, or it's really known as the Metro West building. They've had new companies moving in there. It's almost fully occupied. Orochem is a company that the mayor and I met with. They bought a building about 80,000 square feet at 340 Schumann Boulevard. They were using about a third to a half of it for their corporate headquarters. Because it's zoned ORI, they were able to relocate some of their out-of-town operation and expand here in Naperville, and now they're using the whole 80,000 square feet. I'll do this one, and then Mary, you've got the next one. So this one is Citygate Center. Citygate is part of the Calamos headquarters property. They were looking at doing some internal apartments and expanding the ballroom for their hotel. Their hotel currently has a ballroom. I'm guessing it's around 8,000 square feet, somewhere around there. This will add about another, well, with back of house, probably about 35 or 40,000 square feet. It's, when I say rooftop, it's the top floor of the apartment building. The first floor of the apartment building is activated space for commercial, and some of the apartments will be used for both corporate housing and some extended stay opportunities for the Hotel Arista.
Hey, someone asked a question, what is ORI zoning, Christine?
Oh, I'm sorry. Office, research, and light industrial. So most of our I-88 corridor is ORI. And the reason for that is you have office and research are fairly obvious, but companies like Lucent Technologies, now Nokia, BP, those are actually SIC code. A lot of their operation is considered manufacturing or light industrial because they may be technology, but they're actually manufacturing things. So ORI has been sort of our go-to zoning all along the I-88 corridor, which, as many of you have seen the signage out there, it's been kind of long tagged the research and development corridor for the Chicagoland area. So office, research, and light industrial. And it's considered really office zoning. It's an office corridor. OCI is office, commercial, and institutional, and that's where you'll see something more along the lines of NIU and some of the other sort of closer to residential areas.
And you mentioned Nokia, and someone in the chat asked a question about Nokia, and I'll just answer that question. It's going through the process of a redevelopment proposal for residential. It's not there yet, but they are working with neighbors and working on solutions, and they'll be bringing that back to planning and zoning here soon. And then we'll see it shortly after that, I imagine, at the council level.
You know, that's kind of an interesting one too, because it is zoned ORI, that property. When Nokia came in to sell the office buildings, they will remain there, but their desire is to sort of consolidate all their employees in one building and then re-tenant what's called the 1960 Warrenville Road building. So, you know, really, no good deed goes unpunished, because the property to the north, which was vacant, it's vacant land, about 50 acres of vacant land. That property was looked at several times by industrial developers. They could come in and by right, pull a permit and build, you know, they could have built anywhere, well, north of 1 million square feet of warehouse distribution. We as a community, working with the mayor and others, thought maybe a big truck depot there is probably not the best thing for our community. And so we advanced that when they came in to subdivide the property, that they had to rezone the north piece as R2, so that we knew it would be a softer residential use on that property. It's still working its way through, but you know, if you could roll back tape and really kind of discover that this property actually could have been about 1 million square feet of Amazon distribution with trucks blowing in and out of there, the R2 would look pretty good to me.
Yeah, I gave that developer the number of, at the time, Mayor Claire in Bolingbrook.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
All right, so this is across the street from the Calamos property. It is a proposal that has not been entitled at this point, but it's a fairly significant proposal. It's got 400 apartment units, a couple of hotels in there, a number of restaurant pads, I think an office building or a medical building as well. Right now, it does not meet some of the requirements of the city and does not have support of the school district, nor does it have support of NDP. But the owner is working with city staff on trying to reshape it and reform it so that they can gain support from everybody, hopefully. And then this, if it does get approved, is a pretty significant project. This is a couple $100 million north of that is likely to of an investment in the community. So it'll be interesting to see how this proceeds, but in process.
And adjacent to this, to the west, is Iron Gate. And again, they haven't come through the process yet, but for our presentation next year, we'll probably have something the other side of the Prairie Path with some new development there also.
Yeah.
I'll buzz through the industrial, and then Mayor, if you want to jump on the commercial. So
Sure.
Some of these are a little bit dated. A lot of our slides will start on a project and we'll still be moving to fill it. So this is actually a multi-tenant. It was a spec building right next to the test track over at Fort Hill and Jefferson. There's currently 2 tenants in there. I'm told they have an LOI for about 70,000 square feet. So we're pretty confident that that will be fully leased. This is actually a year old, but the Papa Nicholas purchase. So Frontenac, Gulf Road, Gulfview, and Shore Road. The mayor, Great Western Flooring, has a facility out there, but there's a number of businesses throughout that corridor. And one of our newer ones is Papa Nicholas Coffee. They moved their entire operation and own the building there at 1620. Let that be indicative, though. There's been a lot of energy in that particular area. Fluid Air purchased the 2119 Fisher Drive. It was a spec building. Went rather quickly, and then of course, you know, there's probably 4 people right behind Fluid Air that would have taken that space. All right, Mayor, I'm going to let you pick up on 59. You tell me which ones you want me to take, and I'll take.
Okay, so Route 59 corridor has been a little bit of musical chairs out there. A lot of businesses have relocated on Route 59. These three have all are examples of that. And so it has left, it's going to leave some opportunities. I think mainly what will be left open will be the old Sam's Club, Mall of India now, and the with Walmart and Sam's Club in that same area. Both have been repurposed repurchased by the same investment group. The Mall of India is open and is starting to fill. But the rest of Route 59, I think, is pretty impressive when you drive up and down it now. That entire area there that was from New York Street north to North Road Road was in big trouble. I mean, it was largely vacant all along there. And now when you look at it, it's pretty healthy. And so there's still a little bit of work to do, but it's pretty healthy right now. So I think that's an exciting new area. That is this still true, Christine, that Route 59 corridor is the largest commercial corridor in the state?
Oh, wow. I don't know, because now that the mall across the street has sort of taken a hit, as has some of the other big box. But what you see here with the Heritage Center, Brixmor Development owns this center, and they've reinvested. I mean, they brought Bed Bath & Beyond, the World Market, several of those players are all interconnected. They're all under the same corporate leadership. But the company, Brixmor, has put quite a bit of funding behind there. We've also had a lot of conversation. Now it kind of went on hold with COVID, but we're confident we'll be back talking about Westridge Court, where there's some really exciting ideas to sort of transform it into an experiential retail location right there at the corner of Aurora Avenue, New York. See, on our side of the street, it's Aurora Avenue. On Aurora side of the street, it's New York. Go figure. But right at the corner there of Aurora and Route 59, I would say stay tuned. Hopefully our slide presentation, our PowerPoint next year, the mayor and I will be talking about redevelopment of that corner.
Yeah, and Ron, at this time, we don't have any plans to issue any more TIFs in the area, but it's not off the table entirely, but it's certainly not something that we lead with. We're a great market. We try to attract investment in our community without having to give away all the good stuff. So,
and because I can't see the chat, but which is sometimes good for me. But when you look at something like this development, a lot of people will jump to, it's almost a reflex where you'll be asked, can we get a TIF district? Some of these properties, truthfully, they're already on the tax roll for a very high amount. And so even Mall of India and the Sam's Club, Walmart, when we look at TIF for something like that, which we really didn't take seriously, but because the value of the property is there, the increment would be fairly minimal. What we do see that we think could be an advantage to help redevelop some of these centers is a commercial business district. And what that does is, not unlike we did in the downtown with the food and beverage tax to help cover some of the infrastructure, the parking decks, it's a business district that, unlike a TIF, it doesn't affect the property tax, but it does allow the area to have an additional sales tax, anything in quarter increments. So you could have an extra 1% sales tax just on the Heritage Center Westridge Court property. It affects no other property owners. And those additional dollars could be put back into redevelopment of the property. So instead of using property tax dollars from other taxing districts, it's really kind of funding itself. And so there are a lot of other tools. People like to fall back to TIF. Sometimes TIF is easy because they feel like, well, then they get everybody's money. And I have a little bit more of a negative position on TIF. Sometimes I feel it's a municipality telling the school district that they can spend the money better. So yeah. I think TIF is definitely a last resort. if we look at the one TIF the city of Naperville has, it's in the downtown, and that was done for redevelopment of a parking deck, or for development of parking deck, redevelopment of the Riverwalk and riverfront there. But people don't realize that none of that TIF money went to the developers, the private developers on that deal. It was all public improvement.
Yeah. And John, you had a question about our sales tax revenue with the pandemic economy. It was down about 30%. However, our use tax, which is the tax that we collect for internet sales, was up about 40%. And as a result, we netted out pretty close. So our city was our revenues were down about $4 million beyond what our savings was in expenses. And so that's what our hole was at the end of the year, but the CARES Act money was able to fill that gap. So we actually finished 2020 with the black. And then the BP camp.
We finished 2020 with a what?
We finished 2020 with $3 million in the black.
Great.
Yeah. So pretty impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah, and BP, Christine, is there anything?
Yeah, it's INEOS. So by the end of the year last year, INEOS is a petrochemical company, very similar to BP. I think somehow there's interrelationships between INEOS and BP in the United Kingdom. INEOS acquired the petrochemical division of the BP here in Illinois. And then so INEOS, as part of that, acquired the entire campus. So they own now all the buildings and the entire campus, and what components are still BP are basically leasing back from INEOS, INEOS. So they've been in, they're a fairly young company, but they've been in the area, and so now taking over this whole campus. We don't know what their plans are. We've reached out. I think they're still sort of forging ahead. I think acquiring the whole campus was probably just sort of an afterthought, not an afterthought, but a sort of a tag on to the acquisition of the petrochemical division. But I think it speaks well, because now they have the whole campus, they can start moving more divisions into Naperville.
So we are a few minutes over our time here. I want to respect everyone's times. It seems like we had good dialogue and questions back and forth throughout the Zoom meeting. And so thank you for everyone for doing that. It's my first time holding a Zoom meeting. So I'm glad this worked out. But I want to thank everyone. I want to thank Christine. I want to thank the mayor for both taking part today. For everyone that attended, thank you very much. We appreciate you following the chamber and CREP. And so with that, I think we'll call it a Zoom meeting here. I'll just real quick, Christine or the mayor, do you have anything, any closing remarks before we exit out of this meeting?
Well, I would just like to say we probably wouldn't be 4 minutes over if the mayor didn't talk so much.
That's true. I'll go with that. No, I just think it's just we had a lot more to even discuss. We missed a bunch of stuff because of time limits, but I can just tell you that overall we're very fortunate that the business environment in our community is so strong and healthy, and so we just got to keep, as a business organization, keep plugging away and working hard, because we're competing against the world right now. And so we can't assume that just because we are Naperville and we've been successful in the past, that's going to come easy. It's not. It's going to be hard.
All right. Well, very good. Well, again, I want to thank everyone for attending. And again, thank you, Mayor Christine. And we will hopefully come together as a group here, and we'll have our next CREP event sometime here, maybe sometime in the summer around June. So as we plan that event, continue to look for onto the chamber website. We'll post it there as always, and then we'll go from there. Maybe by then it'll be an in-person one. Who knows? We'll see. So again, thank you all for attending, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks much.
Well, thanks everybody.